Welcome to session 3. In session 3 of chapter 1, we're going to be finishing up chapter 1, showing you a little bit more about lists and nav bars and a couple of other things. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about is lists. Now, there are technically 5 different types of lists that we're going to discuss. The third one is kind of a grouping, and nav bars are kind of the same as unordered lists. So there's kind of really only 3, but let's go ahead and describe them. The first is what we call an ordered list. So this is your outline that you were taught with numbers that go 1, 2, 3. They have a number, a period, space, and then we start the text. So when we talk about lists and being able to put lists in websites, we use ordered lists when we want to have it as a number. Now, to do that, we can also add in start numbers or value attributes as we go along, but the basic formatting is we start with OL, which is ordered list, and then we insert list items for every item that goes in there. So you can see in the example, OL, and then a couple of list items inside of it. Sometimes we want to have lists that do not have numbers, but have bullets. So in this case, we can have what we call an unordered list, a UL. And a UL can use bullets. We'll talk about whether it's a bullet or a square or a star later. We can actually give that type in CSS, but we're not going to do it in this screen. We're going to do it when we get to chapter 2. So in this case, we're just going to do a basic unordered list, and we're going to have the same syntax. So you've got unordered list, UL, and then inside of that, you have your list items. Same thing, list items down. A nested list can contain multiple levels of other kinds of lists. Sometimes you want to have a bulleted list, and then inside the bulleted list, you want to have a numbered list inside of it for each list item. And you can totally do that. Just remember to create a list item first, and then inside of your list item, which is a grouping element, you can add another unordered list item inside of it. So the example given here is an unordered list with the first list item saying item 1. Second list item says item 2, and then it creates another list, another unordered list inside of it. The important thing to keep track of here is to make sure that your element from start to finish is completely contained within its outside parent element. You can't have the closing UL tag outside of the closing LI tag. They have to be done in order, and everything needs to be completely contained. The next one is a new HTML5 cool thing, which is called a descriptive list. These are key value pairs. So they have a key, a DT, which is either a term or a type or whatever it is you want for your key. So a DT refers to your term, and the DD refers to the description. So you can have a series of term descriptions, and then in your CSS, you can format it in such a way so that it looks pretty. All of the key values look the way that you want. This is done a lot if you want to have a list of here's a bunch of items and here's some description about all of these items. It's much better to do a descriptive list with these key value pairs than just to do a basic ordered or unordered list. The last one is a nav list or a nav menu or nav bar. Nav lists are used generally for your navigation, your menu items. And in those cases, they are the same thing as a regular unordered list with a nav element surrounding them. When you put the nav item in there, you can set your CSS for the nav item to do certain things the way you want it to look, and everything inside will be fine. So when you're making a nav bar or a menu item, you want to go ahead and use a unordered list inside of a nav element. The first thing that we're going to do in this section is going to be to create a descriptive list for the menu. So over on the side here, we have our menu. It has not been renamed yet. We can tell because it still has the TXT. So we're going to go ahead and rename that. Again, you can always choose to keep the original version as a TXT and just use save as to save it as the menu without the TXT. So we're going to be creating our menu, and we're going to be using descriptive lists to list out all of the items that are in our menu. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up our pages text. Remember this pages text that we used to get all of the detail that we had. And we're going to copy our menu. So as you can see, they've given us a couple of items here that are on the menu. I'm going to copy those and go back to my menu. And I'm going to paste those in underneath mobile menu. So you can see that that mobile menu section is already set up. It's got its H1 here. And then we're going to be creating our list from here. So first off, we're creating a descriptive list, which is a DL. DL is a descriptive list. Remember, there's three different types of lists that we like to use. Our OL is our ordered list. Our UL is our unordered list. And then our DL is our descriptive list. The cool thing with the descriptive list is that you have two different types of tags that you put in it. First, you can have the descriptive type, which is our first one, which is going to be a certain type of format. And then our descriptive description. Sorry, this is not tabbed over where I wanted it, which is our DD tag. And that's going to be our description. So we're going to take this and plop that in there. Before I do the rest of them, I want to go ahead and show you what this looks like. So we are going to open that in our browser. And you can see what it's done here. So normally, without any formatting, it looks like this, which is just terrible. But what it's done here for the descriptive list is it's taken that title or the type of description that it's going to be. It's a key value pair. So would be the key and this would be the value. So the descriptive type is going to take that and put it here and put a little underline. And then underneath it, it's going to put in the description. So what we can do, I'm going to actually go ahead and just do that real quick so you don't have to wait for it. And now I'm going to go ahead and just quickly format, and I can do that real quick. Right click, format document, and you can see it lined everything up nicely. Now there was this one that I got spaced off that wasn't where I wanted it. And this one I also wanted up here. So you can play around with your spacing a little bit, but that formatting is really nice to just run a quick format and make sure everything gets lined up. So as you can see now, our menu is all pretty because it has our menu items and then the description underneath them. The next thing that we're going to be doing is going to be creating a page of our times and locations. So again, we've got our locations.txt. By the way, on your menu, please do not forget to type in your name and date so that we know when you did it. So locations, I'm going to go ahead and rename. Do not forget to rename. And we have our locations. Let's go ahead and see what that one looks like. So it looks like this. It says today's locations with nothing. We're going to go back to our pages. Pages. And it has the different locations. We are going to plop in that. And in this case, we're going to be doing a couple of different things. We are going to be using the descriptive list again, because we want the same formatting. And it looks like I got all the tags correct. So each of the times, this is going to be a food truck. So they're in different locations at different times. So where are they going to be today? These are the different times for that. The last one that we're going to be doing is our navigation list. So again, a third list. Okay, in our navigation list, we're actually going to start with our about page. So remember our about page here. And we're going to be adding a nav list or a menu bar to this page. So this is on page 56 where we talk about our nav list. We're going to go open up our about page, and directly below the inline image for the tie logo, they want to insert the nav list that is given. So here's our image. Here's where we're going to put our nav list. We're going to give it a nav. We're going to give it a unordered list. And then we're going to give it a couple of list items so that we can have the different items that we want. If you were to just do this without any CSS, it would just look like a regular unordered list. In this case, this is what it looks like. So we end up with our Nav List, which has our different lines going like this. Actually, if I read that, I did read that wrong. Did I? Header. Oh, we were supposed to put that in the header. Excuse me. I was gonna say, I think that was in the wrong place. It doesn't go there. Again, Control C, Control V, your friends, makes things a lot easier. Much better. So we have our nav bar that goes across the top. It doesn't do anything right now. So I can click this all you want. It isn't going to go anywhere. We haven't put those in yet. But that does give you the navigation links that you need. The next thing we're going to talk about is working with our hypertext links or links. These are the anchor tags that we're going to be using to create links to move around through our site. So in our site that we're working with, we want to go from one page to the other. We need to take that information and put it inside of an anchor tag. Now in a nav bar, which is what we're going to be using, we have a series of list items. And when we created our menu items to begin with, we just created list items and called them about and location and menu and so forth. When we get to the next page, we're going to show you how to add the anchor elements in there so that you can have the anchor and the href or the source that it's going to be going to when you click the link. Again, make sure your entire anchor tag is enclosed inside of your list item. Make sure that your list item closing tag is outside of your closing tag for your anchor item. By the way, you can also add these links to images by nesting the image inside of an anchor tag as well. We now get to work with making those links work. So our nav bar here, again, our about, locations, menu, they don't go anywhere. They're just text right now. So we need to turn them into hyperlinks or hypertext links. So what we're going to do is we are going to change this list item from the word about to an A tag with an href equal to the page that we want to go to, our about page. And we're going to close that A tag and type in the word about. So remember, really important to keep track of, if you have an open tag, you have to have a closed tag, and those both have to be inside the list item. So when I save that, the about now becomes a hyperlink, which will go to the about page. This is the about page, so it's just going to go here. But we're going to use that same concept and we're going to create those for all of the items. So now that we have that done, all of these are now hyperlinks. Each one of them will go to the page that we want it to. The problem is right now, if I go to locations, which is fine, I have to hit the back button to go back to About Us because I don't have the menu bar on every page. So we have our mobile menu. Check each of them. It's really important that you check your pages and links and make sure that they work correctly. Make sure that they go to the correct space. So once we have done that and made sure that they all work, we're going to talk about how to make an image also a hyperlink. So we have this image here in our About Us, and we want to make that go back to the home page. So in that case, that's this image right here. It's the photo. What we're going to do is we are going to surround this image in an A tag that is going to go to the start. By doing this, we make it so that this, as you can see, my hand just turned to the click to the hand instead of the pointer. And it takes us back to our home page, which we only looked at for a few seconds because we haven't made all of these work yet. The last thing that we want to do with this is we want to take that nav bar and we want to paste it in all of the other pages. Because like I said, if you go to locations, you don't have a nav bar there. So what we're going to do is take this nav bar here, copy it, and then go to every other page that we need to and paste it in underneath the header image the same way. So here's catering. Now I can go to locations, I can go to menu, I can go to reviews, I can go to catering, and I can go to contact. And they all have that hyperlink for us. So as we saw working with VS Code, it does a lot of formatting for you when it comes to putting in the file name because it knew a lot of the file names. But sometimes you're going to have to reference a file name that is not so easy. You might have to go up a folder or down a folder, go into an images folder or something like that. So when we talk about our folder path, it's really important to recognize the difference between an absolute path and a relative path. A relative path is where the path is relative to wherever the current page is. So if I am down a couple of folders and I need to go back up a couple folders to get to my images tag, you have to be able to relatively move up and down your folders. In that case, you can use 2 periods and a slash to move up a folder. An absolute path is a path that starts at the root and moves its way down. So you start with C:\/ and you go from there. So if you do an absolute path, it's really important, especially in a website, if you ever use an absolute path, that you know what your server looks like and you know what that absolute path is. Most of the time in a website, you are going to be using a relative path because on your web server, you may not know exactly what the absolute path is. What we can do in HTML5 is we've added the ability to add a base path. So our base path tells us where do we want to start. And this helps us in the case where we want to have things that are relative to that base path without having to go all the way down to the C:\/ to make sure that they're all straight. So we can set the base path to allow the relative path to always start in a specific location. So whether that may be your C:\/ or maybe that's somewhere in there, we can use our base path for that. There are 2 ways to link to a location within a given document. So document being your web page. So you can use the ID attribute or use the name attribute. Both of them work. I recommend stick with the ID just because that seems to be better. But you can use the name attribute as well. And this goes back to HTML4 and some of the other versions before HTML5. So with the ID element, you mark your location by defining the attribute of an ID field. So ID equals lunch. This is where my lunch menu is. The ID tags must be unique because if you're going to click on it, it has to know where it's going. So it can only have one unique ID field that it's going to go to. To do that, you're going to use the hashtag to set your href. So if you are in your current file and you want to go to a separate location within the current file, you can simply say your href is equal to hashtag my new location, in this case, lunch. If you need to go to a separate file, you can say the file name, myfile.html, and then give the hashtag of the ID field, in this case, lunch, to be able to jump directly to that location. That's how you use the ID field. So if it's an ID field, you have to use that hashtag to differentiate where you're going in the location. If you use the name field, you can use name as an attribute for your object or for your element. So in this case, I again have given my name of lunch. But when you are doing your href, instead of giving an href to your anchor, you can give the term name. So where do I want to go? And instead of saying href file name, I can just say name equals lunch, and it can go directly there. So that's kind of a cleaner way of doing it, especially if you're moving just within a given document. Sometimes you want to use an anchor tag to link to something other than a new document or a location in a given document. So you can obviously still do that, but you can also make your href a couple of other things. And this goes along with when you have smartphones and the smartphone can do things for you. So we can have a FTP or an HTTP for resources. You can have a mail to send an email. You can have a telephone, so you can call a number, especially if you have your phone on you. You click the icon or the hyperlink, and it will jump straight to your phone system and it'll try to dial that number. You can also do an SMS or a text message using your SMS system. So these are kind of convenient about being able to link to other resources if you want to do that from inside of your app. If your app is on the web and someone's using it with their mobile phone, there's a lot of nice things that you can do there. In our Contact Us page or contact page, we have an email address for the curbside tie and a phone number. And we're going to go ahead and link those two so that we can have a reference in case you're using your cell phone to be able to go straight to your email or to go straight through your phone. So we'll start with the email. So we say email here. In between the word email and then the actual email address, we're going to add the A tag, the anchor tag. And we're going to use an href equals, quote. And in this case, we're going to use our mail to curbsidetie@example.com. Now, in this case, I'm just going to keep using that, close the string here, and go ahead and paste that in so that it'll still say curbside tie, but it has the href in there. And that way we can have a hyperlink to the address. So you can see if I mouse over it, look down here, and it's going to say that mail to curbsidetie@example.com. We can do the same thing here for our call. And we're going to use the href of tel. So again, href equals tel for telephone, colon. And in this case, we're going to use just numbers. We're not going to be using the parentheses or anything like that. And with phone numbers, we like to start them with a plus. 1-704-555-1151, and then end our tag. And then make sure that our other side of our A tag, our anchor tag, goes on the other side of the phone number. So now the phone number pops up like this. Now I'm running this on my computer, which does not have a phone attached to it, so making the telephone call is not going to work. It might pop up and yell at me and go, you don't have a way to do phone calls. But if I was looking at this on my phone, that would pop straight into my phone system and make the phone call out for me, which is a really convenient thing that we like to do. With our hypertext, there are some attributes for it that we haven't really gotten into. The first one, of course, is the href, which we've talked about before. There is a download saying that this file should be downloaded as a file as opposed to going to a location. So that happens if you're going to be linking to a file somewhere in your code and you want to say just download the file. Your relationship between the document and the current page has a specific type. You can do that. You can give a language for your href or a type, often a MIME type or something like that. But the one that you're going to use the most often, I believe, is going to be your target. So when you have a website, and I'm sure you guys have done this before, sometimes when you click a hyperlink, it changes the current page that you're on to the new page. And sometimes it opens it as a new window or a new tag, a new tab. That's where the target comes in. So if you say that the target is self, that's the default, it will open the page in the current tab or window, replacing the current page. So if we're on a current page and we click the link, it will replace the current page with whatever we wanted for our link. However, if you choose blank, underscore blank, these are all underscore, it opens the page in a new tab, a new window, and leaves the old tab exactly the way it was, which is kind of convenient if you're going to be clicking on a link, but you don't want to alter where the person was before. There are also two more that are there for parent and top that have to do with using frames. We're not going to talk about frames in this course, so we're going to kind of skip over that. But if you are interested in frames or you know what frames are, the parent and the top can also alter where the target is of your hyperlink. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 1. Let's talk about the homework. So many of the items that are taught in this lesson are going to be done for you in the future, which means you may have done all of the lists and ordered lists and put in these links and done all of these things. From now on, that'll all be done. So your 3 assignments for this chapter are the only 3 that you're going to get for practicing what you've learned today, because there's just too much. We're going to move on to CSS, and all of your actual HTML is going to be done for you next class or next chapter. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So I really want you to put some effort into these 3 projects and make sure you really understand the information that we've taught you. The first is the review assignment. So it's at the end of the chapter. It's the mobile Panini site. Go to the student text or the student files that you downloaded and go find HTML1 and then find the review folder directory. You're going to go get that. You're going to download it. You're going to open the whole thing in VS Code the same way that I open tutorial in VS Code. And then you're going to be editing files the same way that I've been editing them through the tutorial. It'll go over a lot of things we've already learned. When you finish, it's really important for the review assignment that you do everything in order. Some of the items don't work right if you don't do them in order. So if you do 1, 2, 7, 5, 3, it's not going to look right because things are going to get kind of confused. So it's really important you follow them in order. And when you're all finished, take the entire folder and zip it. So use the compression, the zip, one of your zip files, and submit it in D2L. So that's going to be your review assignment. Most of the stuff in there is exactly what I just did in the tutorials. So you can go back through this video, you can go back through the book, look through what they've explained, and that should be able to get you through all of the review assignment without too much effort. So make sure you understand all of those. The second assignment is going to be Jed's tree care. It's the case 1. Case 1 is also similar to the review in the fact that it is very specific on what you're going to do. It's going to give you numbers, it's going to give you colors, it's going to tell you, put this here, put that there. And it will look exactly like the image to the side. You should be able to understand what's being asked without giving too explicit instructions. So they won't say, put this line here. They'll say, add a header that does this. So again, download the case 1 folder from the student files, follow the directions. Don't forget to add your names to the comment because that's really important. I'm going to check that when I'm grading them. When you're finished, zip the whole thing, submit it under D2L. The final project for this one does not give you a final image to help you because this is where you get to play around a little bit. It does give instructions. You have to have a Nav list. So you better know what that means when I say you have to have a Nav list. But it doesn't tell you what to put in it. So you're going to have to use your intuitive knowledge of what the site looks like from the sample that is given. This has a sample file as well. Go download from your student files, HTML1, and then case 4. So it has some sample files. It has some supplemental material about what it is that you're learning about, what this site is going to be about, and some details on what the site should look like. Everyone's version is going to be extremely different because this is going to be your chance to show me that you learned it and you can kind of make your own site. So everyone's version will be different, which means if yours is the same as anyone else, you just get a 0. That's just done. No copying, please. There is no CSS in this version, so it's going to look a little boring compared to the other ones that we've done, but that's okay. We're going to get into CSS next chapter. It'll be here fast enough. The important thing is just get the information on the page, try to make sure that you hit everything that is on the requirements list, and do what you can to make the site look good. Just a couple of final notes for you. Yes, you can ask for help. If you're working on these projects and you've spent 2 hours and you can't figure it out, please send me a chat on Teams, post a question on Teams, find a way to get some help. Yes, you can search the internet for help, look through your book again, but yeah, ask for help. It's fine. You can also schedule an appointment with me if you want to. I do have office hours Monday through Thursday on campus from 1 until 2. If you want to show up there, it's fine. But if you'd rather just send me a Teams chat, that works as well. Chapter 1, remember we have our Teams meeting on Mondays at 7. Again, if you cannot make it for any reason, please send me a text and let me know. I'll be offering some help, giving some suggestions, doing a little bit of lecture, but it's really your opportunity this week to be able to meet with me, meet with the class as a whole, and to hopefully make the class feel more together as a group. Assignments are always due on Sundays by 11:30, except finals week, which we'll talk about when we get to finals week. But start early. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2's assignments are both due on Sunday at 11:30. I expect that you will spend 2 to 3 hours per project to get through this, which means between the projects and the quiz, it's a very long quiz. It's almost 100 questions, but you can reference your book. But between the quiz and the projects and the videos and reading the book, I expect this class to take between 15 and 20 hours easy per week. So I would say maybe 10 hours per chapter, 2 chapters a week, maybe even 15 hours per chapter. It might be hard. If you've never programmed, if this is a new concept for you, please make sure you have scheduled in your time and try to get Chapter 1's assignments done before Thursday. I recommend if you can get the first chapter done by Thursday, the second chapter by Sunday. That seems to work pretty well. And the last one is the chapter 1 quiz. Like I said, it's almost 100 questions, but yes, you can reference your book. There is no time limit on it. You can take as long as you need to, and you can take it twice. If you go through and you do terrible the first time, look through the ones that you missed and see if you can figure out how to fix those and retake it and try it again. I'd rather have you go and learn the concepts and get them right than get a bad grade on a quiz and not learn anything. That doesn't do anybody any good. So have a great week. I will talk to you again in chapter 2.